I'm also being at this point of time joined by Harish Bijoor. He's a brand guru and entrepreneur. And thank you very much, Harish. And of course, the 50% tariffs are finally kicked in. What are the immediate steps we should be taking as a country and an economy?
Well, 9:30 a.m., 9:31 a.m. onwards this morning, IST, tariffs have kicked in. What steps, if you ask me? I think this is going to be a sucker punch onto our exports. We are really talking about as much as 87 billion USD of exports, possibly 60 billion USD getting affected by this. What can we do? I think, firstly, something long term, which is insulate your exports and ensure that you're hedging across countries, which is easier said than done. It'll take 6 to 8 years to hedge. The second thing is improve your domestic markets so that all the items that are affected have hopefully a market within this country as well. Now, that is an effort which must go on and can go on. And the third is waiting for the US courts and the judgment, because this entire thing is under IEEPA, and I think the hearings are going to be on. But these are just three things.
Right, absolutely. Now, how do you see the GST cuts? Do you think they will provide interim relief to our businesses?
Well, I think India will act, and India will, of course, have a net which will cover, exporters. But please note that these exporters are, working around the clock most of the time. They actually are just mere suppliers to a market. They are not marketers. They do not have branded products. A bulk of these across the categories we're talking about are blind commodity exports. And I think that is a problem. And the commodity exports are typically a recipe that stares at values actually getting pushed down. So I think, however much the government can help, the government will help, I'm sure. But the exporter is in trouble for the moment.
The government, do you think it should consider an interest subvention for MSMEs like they had done during COVID-19? Can there be stimulus packages or moratoriums that can be provided on the loans that have been taken by these entrepreneurs?
Yes, an interest subvention is one of the tools which I'm sure can be used, will be used. But the bigger problem is the fact that there's going to be a cascade because of tariffs kicking in, and the cascade starts with the fact that our biggest client country for a lot of people in gems and jewelry, in textile, in shrimps, in n numbers of territories, the biggest consuming country is going to switch off. Now that's going to be a problem. Now that's going to cascade onto production. We're going to produce less. I'm told units in Surat, units in Tirupur, units in n numbers of places have actually stopped working for a while. When work isn't there, salaries are hit, which means that employees are hit. And when all of this is hit, growth is hit. So I think when growth is hit, investors don't want to invest in these categories. And therefore, it's going to be a vicious cycle when all these things, one cascading into another, is going to create a kind of a domino effect. So this is a serious hit for sure.
Now, we are looking at a hit of 35 to 40% of our exports to America. What do you think are the immediate alternatives that are available to us? What should be the government's action plan?
I do believe that we're really talking about nearly 50% of the total exports that we're talking about. I mean, if you say 87 billion US dollars, you could be talking about 43, 44 billion US dollars coming under question because of the current tariff. Well, every action is going to be a bit of a medium term to long term action. One thing the tariffs will do is it will make India reconsider its dependence on overseas markets. And the second thing it might do is, at the macro level, it could actually cascade a kind of a Swadeshi movement of sorts. Because if exports get hit, the idea is save on imports, which typically means to say that, not only imports, but I do worry for many an MNC brand in this country, which, what if there is a movement which says that eat only Indian brands, drink only Indian brands, wear only Indian brands, use only Indian brands kicks in. And if that kind of a thing comes in, we are going to get insular. So it'll make the whole world of business inward looking. And I suspect a tariff will do this. It'll make India more inward looking. But all these measures are not going to counter the impact of this sudden tariff hitting someone. It's going to take 6 to 8 years for a country to build its resilience. That's where we stand today.
I would also like to understand from you, what do you think is going to be the impact of these tariffs on the American economy in the long run?
Well, I do believe President Trump is great for the United States of America, and Prime Minister Modi, needless to say, is great for India. Countries are going to have this kind of a tariff relationship progressively more and more over a period of time. How is the US going to be hit by it? I do believe immediately the US is going to substitute imports. And particularly, people, our neighbors are going to benefit and their neighbors are going to benefit. By our neighbors, I mean, if I can call China as a neighbor for sure, Vietnam, if I can call it a neighbor for sure. I think these guys are going to benefit. In addition, their neighbors are going to benefit. Bangladesh is going to benefit, which is a neighbor of ours. So substitution of imports from destinations is what the US is going to try. One other neighbor who's going to benefit is the US's neighbor. Mexico is going to benefit from it. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a hit as far as the US consumer is concerned, because things will get substituted and commodity exports can be substituted through these four countries that I mentioned, particularly looking at what the US imports by and large from us.
Right. And talking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to China, he'll be meeting Premier Xi Jinping. Do you think there are going to be any major trade announcements or MOUs that might be signed at in the presence of both the leaders?
Well, I don't expect anything big, but it simply means to say that China and India are going to get closer, for instance. And I think that's going to be a geopolitical play. All of us have witnessed the kind of anti-China sentiment that we have seen within the Indian context. And I think that's going to soften. And that softening is going to say that, hey, listen, guys, the consumption markets of the future lie in India and China. And the production markets, and if we're talking of some of the biggest brands from the world, come from the West. So if you wish to have solid markets in these two big behemoths, India is a 1.43 billion country, China is a 1.42 billion population country, and that's a total of 2.85 billion people. If you want a market which is as large as 2.85, then I know, relationships need to better. But at the end of the day, my comment is that all relationships are transactional, or at least most relationships are transactional. And this is a relationship between countries. It is bound to be transactional. So the relationship between India and China is going to be transactional, redefined by US policy at this point of time. And the relationship between India and the US is also going to be more and more transactional, again redefined by US policy.
Do you think that it will take time, considerable time, for India and America to resume trade talks and reverse the hit that has led to the deterioration of the bilateral ties?
I don't think it'll take time. I do believe, I'm sure the back channels are already working. And, because the US is, of course, interested in India, and India is, of course, interested in the US as far as markets are concerned. So the back channel talks will continue. And I'm sure the back channels will bring it to the front end at some point of time or the other. But I don't see this to be a stalemate that will last forever and forever. because it affects quite a lot of people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harish Bijoor, for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views.